That's basically what it is. Hi, this is Living Raw Radio, and my name is Geeta Sidhu-Robb. I have, as always, the most fantastical guests who go through life doing all sorts of normal things, and then at some stage, somewhere, they turn left and their normal lives turn into extraordinary happenings. And today's guest is somebody I keep trying to persuade to adopt me, and she just laughs at me, and it's very traumatic. This is the fabulous Natalie Ledwell. Natalie, thank you so much for joining me today.
Geeta, it is an absolute pleasure to be here, darling.
So can you just hold fire for 7 hours while I read your bio, because it's so fantastic. I just want to read it. So you're a best-selling author. You're a host of the podcast, Not Over, Just Different. You're co-host of the cable TV show Wake Up. And you're founder of Mind Movies, which is my newest joy and passion, which I've never even heard of. And you have an incredible online personal development business, which has reached over 5.8 million people worldwide. That's like some small countries, just in case anyone was wondering. How did you get here? I mean, when I was talking to you, it was so interesting because you were like, well, we wanted to know how to do this, so we moved continents. And I was just like, whoa, sorry, what? So how did this actually happen?
Well, so let's see, where do we start? It actually really started from a monumental moment of frustration. Because my then husband and I, we were living in Sydney, and this is 2006, and we had 4 businesses we were running at the same time. We had coffee franchises, health food business, and all these other things. And I remember looking at all my bills and looking at my bank balance on the computer and going, okay, I'm missing some vital piece of information here because I don't understand why we're still struggling. Yeah. And my first career was in the fitness industry. So I remember one of my bosses handed me a set of cassettes by Brian Tracy and went, I think you should listen to these. And I'm just like, why isn't everybody listening to these things? So, I became an avid learner. So, I knew how to set goals. I knew how to think positively. I knew how to do all of those things. And I'm like, well, why is this not working? And then a friend of mine suggested that I get online and order a DVD called The Secret. And so I watched that movie and went, this is what I'm missing. The whole visualization piece, the whole emotion piece, the whole, you don't need to know how it's going to happen. And for me, I would never set audacious goals because I'm like, well, I can't see how it's going to happen. So unless I can figure every single step out, it would, stop me from setting these lofty goals. And then not long after that, a friend of ours showed us this little movie that he had created, and it was like a little slideshow, and it had PowerPoint slides that had affirmations on them with photos in between that matched the affirmations, and then music. And this was his version of a vision board, and we, after seeing The Secret, we knew how important it was to see ourselves already in this future in our mind and feel the emotions of already being there. And that's what this little movie did. And he then approached us and said, look, I really want to set up this website, sell the instructions so people around the world can make these movies. And at the time, Glen could hardly turn on a computer. I knew how to use Word and a bookkeeping software, but it's the only reason I used a computer. We spent no time online. I'd never heard of YouTube. I didn't know what social media was. This is 2007 now. This is now right. 2007. And I'm like, I don't know. But so I said to Ryan, who was our friend at the time, I said, look, I don't know what we can bring to the table. I don't know. We don't have any skill. He goes, it's all right. I'm going to teach you. Because he goes, what you bring to the table is you are business people, you're GSD. You just get stuff done. And he goes, I need that. We're like, okay. So we put a little video up on YouTube. And that little video, created so much traffic for us. And we're getting all these emails from people saying, look, this is changing my life. I'm like, all right, guys, we need to figure this out. And because in the fitness industry, I used to do a lot of work and speak on stage and be in this positive, environment, these emails and the response we were getting sparked something in me. I'm like, oh, this is where I'm meant to be.
There's a story. Good. Yeah.
Yeah. So then we realized you could buy programs on the internet that taught you how to do it. We're like, ooh, revelation. So we bought one program by a guy called Frank Kern, who's a bit of a legend in the whole internet marketing world.
Completely.
Yeah. So we bought his program, implemented one idea, got our investment back. We're like, all right. So then he announced he was doing a live event in April of 2008. And in Glen's original Mind movie, one of his affirmations was that we live in an endless summer. So we're like, great, 6 months in California, 6 months in Sydney, done and dusted. So we get to San Diego in April 2008. We went to that seminar. It was our first day there. We were accepted into Frank's mastermind group, which was the smartest thing we could have done, because we had the right support and we were surrounded by marketers.
Yeah.
And then all the friends that we made were also marketers. So even in a social situation, we're learning. So we spent 6 months just, working 10, 12-hour days from our bedroom at this little apartment that we rented underneath the flight path of San Diego Airport. It was so cheap. And, we didn't have money to pay anyone to do things for us. So we had to learn ourselves.
Yeah.
So at the age of 40, we're learning how to edit videos and build websites and do autoresponders and all these things that were completely foreign to us. And so we finally got to our launch, which was September 2008. By that stage, we had accumulated $120,000 on credit cards just to get this thing off and this is on top of the mortgage and car repayments and everything back home. And then we find out the morning of the launch that this economic crisis is happening on the planet, which we had no idea about. And we're like,
because you've been all into your product, you're not looked up from it.
We haven't looked up to breathe, right? So we're like, oh God, what does this mean? 120 grand. I'm like, if this flops, we are toast. Like, I don't know, this is a deep hole to dig us ourselves out of. We ended up doing like $100,000 in the first hour. And our program was $97. Like, it was cheap. We ended up doing a $700,000 launch. Which
insane.
Ridiculous, like just ridiculous. But it was just timing. Like, it could have gone either way, but it's like the time.
So you must have just done such a good job learning and setting it up.
Yes. Well, we followed a formula. The information that we needed was out there. We followed a program called Product Launch Formula, which is by Jeff Walker. We included Jeff because Frank's really good at the psychology of selling. And, my now ex-husband and still business partner, Glen, is a marketing genius. And this is his passion. It's what he loves to do. And so combining all of those things together, we were able to create this perfect storm. And of course, that's really what put us on the map. Now, there's a lot more to the story and a whole lot of things went wrong and we had to overcome a lot of insurmountable odds. But, when we came back to the US the next year, everyone wanted to know who we were. This is when we're getting emails from Jack Canfield and John Asraf and Joe Vitale and blah, blah, blah. And it was like, all right, here we go.
That's insane.
Yeah.
It must have felt like a dream.
It was. And, we were applying everything that we know, not just our business acumen, but, when we really got outrageous success was when we combined all of our business know-how with these, manifestation principles, with this visualization, making our mind movies, having these little things where we'd leave the apartment and go to the dog park so we could raise our frequency and raise our emotions so we could feel happy. And then we'd have these conversations as if the launch was already a success, and describing the life that we were creating, which, what we were describing back then, what we live now far exceeds any kind of expectation that we had.
Yes, because it's almost that or better, isn't it?
Oh, and it's way better, like more than I could ever imagine.
That's so fantastic. And you've been really lauded for your work. You just recently you were knighted by the Orthodox Order of St. John, right? It was a humanitarian group that recognizes that individuals not only doing great work, but who have a big vision of the work they want to complete in the world, helping others. So you're actually Dame Natalie Ledwell.
Officially, yes.
I totally love that. That's so fantastic. But it's the recognition more than the title, isn't it?
Yeah. And, it was really interesting because, one of the big events that happened for me in recent years is Glen and I separating.
Yeah, that's what I was delicately trying to get to, but yeah. Thank you for that.
Yeah, so it's really interesting. We were together for 20 years and we kind of just grew apart. And there was a lot of reasons for it. But thank goodness we were able to get to a point where we ended the marriage. We both agreed that the marriage was over. But we also agreed that our relationship wasn't over, that the business at all costs, because we knew that the business and our mission and everything we're doing was much bigger than the two of us. And, we have the luxury of both being able to work in the same business and not even be in the same city together. So that's kind of cool. But, we never lost the level of love and respect and commitment to each other.
Is that what it would take? Because there are so many husband and wife partners that when they break up, the business really suffers. How did you manage that? Because you're saying it now, we love and respect and we have a relationship, but that's all kind of a tidied up version, right? That's actually, it's not, it wasn't hard.
It wasn't, and only because by the time of, how it happened is that Glen met somebody else. So when he, you know, when we had the conversation, he goes, look, I'm in love with somebody else. Honestly, I was relieved. I'm like, oh, thank God. Whew, I'm out. And you've got someone else, so I don't need to worry about you. This is all good. So we both wanted it. I probably would never have initiated. We both wanted it. But in saying that, one of the first questions, actually the second question I asked, the first question I asked was, oh my God, who am I without him? And then within a week I got to, well, who do I want to be? Because, oh my God, I get the opportunity to completely, you know, revamp myself. And
that was a very naughty look. I just would like to point out. Deeply, deeply naughty look. Hooray.
But the next question I asked was, well, what was my role? What was my contribution to the end of our marriage? Because I knew I checked out 2 years beforehand, and I knew that I had, and you know, in my mind, I wanted to make it work, but I just couldn't bring myself to do it. So I'm like, okay, how did I get there? Well, you know, there is a lot of deep wounding, you know, deep core things, like my biological mother left when I was 3. So, you know, and I never really even looked at that. And it wasn't until we kind of split, and because, you know, it's easy when you're in a marriage like that to blame your partner for everything. I can't shine because of him, and you know, I'm unhappy because of him. And of course, once I lost my scapegoat, I'm like, damn, okay, well, it's all up to me now. And I'm like, so if I'm not happy, this is mine. If I'm not shining, if I'm not stepping into what I want.
What's so interesting is that you say you're not shining, and yet you were the person on the front of every single thing that you did. Isn't that ironic?
Yes.
And it's not, I mean, I understand that completely because I spend a lot of time in public, but I want people to understand that when you say you're not shining, you mean it internally, not that you're not the face of bloody everything, because you were and are.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think too, because I had this little voice in my head going, you're wasting time, you're wasting time. I'm like, I don't know what that means. I mean, look at our business, look at all the people that we're helping. But what it meant was you're meant for more than just this. Yeah. And of course, you know, since then I've teamed up with a colleague of mine. We've created this children's curriculum, social emotional learning curriculum, which is needed more now than ever. You know, we're working, you know, we're about to start a pilot program in the US. We were actually until COVID hit, but so we'll see where that's happening. But we're working in Liberia, Africa, and different places.
Yeah, tell me about this program, please. Because one of the things about COVID, of course, is that the educational system has been so badly hit. But in fact, I think that on many levels, that's a bonus, because people have just accepted the way education is supposed to work and never moved from it. And we all think that the way education works is deeply stupid, because it's kind of, it melds together things that have always been melded together, whether or not they work together, because you've got to come out with this end result. So what is it that you have in mind?
Well, I mean, you know, and I've had some people go, oh, you're taking on the education system. And I'm like, no, that's not what's happening here. What we're doing is helping children and teenagers have the foundation for all the life skills on how to self-regulate their emotions, on how to have self-worth and high self-esteem, you know, how to know who they are, what their values are, what they stand for. Which is a foundation to everything. This is the foundation for them to have a really happy and fulfilling life.
Yeah, because it's how you judge the whole world, by the lens of how much you feel inside, right?
That's right. So, you know, we're challenging what the definition of beauty is. You know, we're challenging them.
Oh my God, is that overdue?
Right? You know, and how to be inclusive. You know, so it's an anti-bullying program, it's a suicide prevention program, it's an anti-racist program. It is a social and emotional learning program. It is this program that really all the life skills that we wish we had learned when we were younger. You know, like we even take them through different lessons where there'll be different scenarios when they're, you know, in a situation with, you know, the opposite sex, with drugs, with whatever. So they're already, you know, going through that, and based on what they already know about themselves and what their values are, they're already knowing how they're going to respond in that situation before it just gets thrust upon them and they're like, I don't know what I'm going to do, you know.
And you say yes just to follow in because it's easier.
Yeah, exactly.
But I think that's life skills, right? That you're teaching.
Absolutely.
And it's the skills that we used to learn because we lived in communities. And
Yeah.
we don't learn those anymore because we don't follow the same format of living, because we live in isolated places away from where our families and where we were born, right?
Yeah, and the thing is, the world in which our kids are growing up in now is vastly different to ours. You know, you look at the internet, you look at social media, you look at all of the stimulus they're getting, you know, all of the pressure that's put on kids right now to do, you know, to do certain, you know, get to a certain level and so forth. So it's coming in from all angles. And, you know, now more than ever, they really need to understand how to handle the overwhelm and how to handle the pressure, which is more than we ever had to, you know, worry about when we were growing up.
Well, it wasn't constant. We had pressure, but it wasn't constant. You remember those days where you could walk away and escape? There is no escape, right? Everything is in your face all the bloody time.
Yeah. Yeah, and when we, you know, like you might have got teased when you're at school, but now that's magnified a millionfold because of the internet.
Because it follows you home.
Yeah.
There is no escape.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's so interesting. So what age do you want to work with kids with that?
So the program that we've created is from K to 12. So the full gamut. And it's designed to be taught in a classroom. So the teacher's already teaching their existing class. And like I said, we've had outstanding results in Liberia. Liberia is such an interesting country to work in with this particular kind of a program, because 45% of their population is under the age of 14. You know, they've just come through 2 civil wars.
Wow.
You know, so you think about it, nearly everyone in the country is suffering PTSD because they have all in their lifetime seen war.
Yeah.
So, you know, the parents are trying really hard to cope. You know, the kids, if they didn't see it, you know, they definitely are feeling the effects of it. A lot of the kids aren't actually even with their parents because they may have lost their parents in the war. And so, you know, everyone's doing their best to handle things. But when we're teaching these kids, and, you know, which I think are kind of like the basic, you know, life skills,
exactly.
The difference that we see in them is just remarkable. Absolutely remarkable. And, you know, one of my favorite...
Meaning what?
Well, one of my favorite stories is how, you know, one of the lessons is on generosity. And so, you know, a couple of the kids went home and was talking to their parents about, you know, generosity and what they were learning. And the parents were like, no, you can't do that. Everyone knows it's bad luck to, you know, give things away. And these kids are like, no, I don't believe that. They're already challenging superstition. They're already challenging culture because they're like, that doesn't make sense. Because they've already got enough of the lessons to know, because, you know, it's not just, you know, we don't just teach them empathy and compassion, but there are exercises where they embody it.
Yeah.
And then we get them to acknowledge not just how, you know, what the result was, but how they felt when they were doing it.
Yeah.
Like,
and you can always tell whether you feel good or bad when you've done the thing, right?
Yeah. Yeah, but doing that extra step and making them acknowledge it as well is different. You know, and the commitment they make to their classmates and how they're going to look after each other. And, you know, I've got the teachers in Liberia show me little videos of the kids hugging and forgiveness, and it's amazing. And it's changing their lives, and not just the students, but the teachers as well. So.
Well, it does. I mean, I'm from Africa, actually. I grew up in Malawi, and one of my best friend is Kenyan. My mother was born and brought up in Kenya. And one of my best friends, people all dance to a different tune, and she set up one of the first refugee camps in South Sudan, which, you know, wild horses would never have made me do, because I just will never do something like that.
Yeah.
And she set up what they call the Truth, Justice and Reconciliation Committee in Kenya to go through the land talking about various genocides that had occurred and murders and mass murders, and getting people to be able to talk about, I hated it because this is why it mattered to me. This is what, you know, and releasing the emotions. And I remember just looking at her thinking, it's just my idea of absolute hell. And it's so interesting that after that, you see these images, you see people hugging, you see children who thought they were enemies talking to each other, because there's some kind of structure that has enabled them to cross the divide that they were on before.
Well, it really comes down to forgiveness, forgiving the unforgivable.
Yeah.
You know, I also have a really close girlfriend of mine who works in Rwanda.
And it's so interesting because it's one of the most beautiful countries in the world, and you think that it's built on bloodshed.
Yeah.
Total.
Well, there are millions of court cases that will never make it to court. And so, you know, you have neighbors living next to each other where, you know, one neighbor killed the other one's family, you know, so, and they're getting to a place of reconciliation and forgiveness. It's, you know, so.
An amazing way to take the world, right? You really learn. So can you tell me a little bit more? I mean, and I really honor you for that. Thank you for doing that, because it's a wonderful, I mean, and growing up in places like this, although Malawi was not, didn't have those issues. We have famine and different other issues, hunger, basically. It is still something, like I spent a lot of time around Rwanda, and I saw that, and it's really interesting how much of a difference. The people just think forgiveness is too simple, and yet it's the hardest, biggest thing that you can do. Don't throw money at someone, throw love at them as a starting point, you know?
Yeah, well, that's why, you know, I'm loving what we're doing in Liberia, because, I mean, yeah, anyone can throw money at the situation. But unless we actually change the minds and the hearts of the younger generation who is coming up, like, we really have the ability to change a country.
Yes.
If 45% of their population is under the age of 14, and we can reach a majority of them. Like, we get the ability, well, you know, we don't. I'm giving them the tools so that they can make the change themselves, you know.
Well, but still, what you're doing is your part, and you start, you're the impetus or the catalyst, and that's everything, isn't it? Because, and then acknowledging as well that you don't own the process, but, you know, it's kind of letting it go, which, there's this wonderful phrase one of my teachers had, and she said, you have to hold it with an open hand.
Yes.
And I just think that's the most beautiful phrase in the world. It's also the hardest thing to do, because you want to hold it with a clenched fist, and it just isn't the right way. I love that, and thank you for that. Tell me more about Mind Movies, because Mind Movies is just your core kind of offering at the moment, isn't it? And just explain to me how people use it, because you've transformed incredible amount of lives with this.
Yeah, you know.
That's your own little country just there.
Yeah. You know, I call Mind Movies the gateway drug. The gateway drug into this whole, like, world of personal development. You know, and Mind Movies is kind of the flagship program, how we got started. We had this cool little idea. The Secret had just been on Oprah, so we were kind of riding that wave. Yeah. But it's just, that's just one component of the whole manifestation process, is the visualization. And so with a movie, Mind Movie, it's like, you know, first of all, you're getting clear about what you want. You're able to articulate that in affirmations and photos. And so, yeah, there's a little bit more to that. But, of course, that's only one piece. And so we started with Mind Movies, and then we created Mind Movies Matrix, which is Mind Movies that are already made for you, but they're combined with brainwave entrainment and subliminal audios. So the brainwave entrainment audios that you watch with the morning Matrix Mind Movies, like wealth or relationships or love or whatever that is, that sound is like this buffering sound. And what that does, it actually shuts down your analytical mind, puts you directly into suggestible mind. So whatever you're watching, it's like going straight into the subconscious mind. It's bypassing the conscious mind, which is, like, awesome.
Yes.
So we have that as well. And then we have what we call my Ultimate Success Masterclass. And it's an online coaching program. You know, we were able to build the technology to deliver the whole curriculum there. And we have thousands of people going through that at any one time. And so it's the full formula on how to, you know, the first part of it is like the nuts and bolts of the mechanics of how to apply the law of attraction. And then the second part of it is, who are you? What are you passionate about? What are your values? You know, and all those kind of things. And then sort of tipping into your relationship with God or the universe as well. And so that's what I teach. So, you know, if someone's looking, and at the moment, there are a lot of people that are looking for ways to think differently, to think more positively, to change their mindset. They may know that they've got some kind of limiting belief that's holding them back. And if they're looking, they're probably going to find us, because, you know, we are everywhere online. But we're like the beginning. And then through, you know, the mailing list that we have, we introduce them to other amazing teachers like Mary Morrissey and Bob Proctor and John Asper. Yeah. So
that they can carry on the journey.
That's right. Yeah.
I love that. So that's not just saying, here's the perfect thing and we do everything. It's like, start here.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And the thing is, people will go in whatever direction they need to. There are some people that when they do this work, it actually, and this has happened to a lot of people, is that it opens up a gift that they have. you know, whether that's some kind of intuitive gift that they have. Maybe they know that they're meant to be coaching, maybe their life experience, you know, and combined with this kind of information really helps them to be able to be in a position to help other people. Maybe they want to become authors or whatever that is, but through the networks that we have, they're able to find what that next step is for them.
That's so lovely. What is the one thing that people don't get right when they're trying to create the future they want?
Well, I think the challenge is that we think, well, if we just think it, then it's going to happen, which is, you know, like a very basic way of looking what the law of attraction is. And there's a little bit more to it. The challenge that we all have is that it's not just our conscious thoughts that create our reality, but it's our subconscious thoughts as well. And so, you know, all of us, you know, through our whole developmental stage, especially between the ages of 2 and 6, when we're you know, growing up, our brain is predominantly in theta brainwave activity during that time. Mm-hmm. So we're sponges, and we're absorbing, you know, what we're being told. We're observing behaviors. What we see on TV, what we're listening to, music. Everything is just going in, and depending on our life experience and our personality, we are going to interpret these things in a certain way.
And as babies, we're going to interpret them in a very life or death way.
Absolutely. Like, even we know that even if a child is in utero, they still have the ability to be able to recognize the father's voice. They're getting all these messages because every emotion that we feel has a chemical makeup, and that's getting fed through to the fetus. So already we're being programmed before we're born, so that we're prepared for survival into the environment in which we're being born into.
Yeah.
So we have these beliefs about ourselves. They don't necessarily set us up for success. Maybe believe we don't deserve it, that, you know, we were told that we were stupid. And the challenge is when we have something like, let's say, for example, you know, we were told we were stupid, and we believe it when we're a kid. So then every time we fail a test or do something silly, our subconscious mind is going, see, told you, you're silly. So we keep gathering, our subconscious mind keeps wanting to gather all this evidence that our belief is true. Yeah. So when we get to an adult and we consciously going, I want to create wealth, this little voice in the back of our head and our mind is going, no, you're too stupid to do that. Yep. You know, so we have to overcome, you know, and all of these negative thoughts that we sometimes are not even aware of travel along these very strong neural pathways in our brain from the subconscious to the conscious mind. So what we need to do is create these new neural pathways.
Yes.
You know, with thoughts that are in alignment with the future that we do want to create.
Well, and the brain is plastic. It's complete plasticity. You just can make into it anything that you want.
Well, that's right. And the thing is, we can increase the plasticity of our brain through certain, you know, like through visualizations and doing things where we're, you know, learning a language, playing an instrument,
run off and buy the mind movie thing immediately. And
yeah, exactly.
It's this thing of, I'm off, I'm going to get one.
Yeah, exactly.
So
yeah, go ahead.
How did you evolve that? Because you set the first thing up and then you sort of looked at it and thought, actually, this would work better. And then you kept putting things on. Is that how you guys did it?
Yeah, and I think too, a lot of what we've done is, number one, we're providing a service, and we're providing to our community what it is that they're looking for or what they want, right? But of course, a lot of it is because of my own evolution.
And that was actually going to be my next question, which is, what do you do in a day, for example?
All right, so the way I start my day is paramount. Like, it's really important, and it's not the same every time. I think if we do the same thing over and over and over again like that, we're just like Groundhog Day, which, you know, let's face it, we're all feeling that a little bit right now. Yeah. So I do mix it up a little bit, and it depends on what my focus is or what my priority is. So, you know, at the moment, I know we've got the virus COVID-19, and I'm actually suffering from COVID-15, which is the 15 pounds that we've put on since COVID started. So right now, my priority is my health. Yeah. So the first thing I'll do, I've had this little process as I'm waking up. I'll kind of tap in, because I know I'm in theta brainwave activity as I'm waking up. And when we're in theta, we are more coherent with the unified field. And so this is when I always ask my question: what do I need to do? How do I solve this? What do I name this program? Like, you know, all those kind of things. That's when I kind of get a lot of my inspiration. Then I get up and exercise. This is the first thing I do. And I'm always listening to a podcast or an audio book or something as I'm doing that. You know, I have a smoothie, you know, with a collagen and a whole bunch of great stuff in it for breakfast. And then I'll normally meditate before I sit down to start work. If I don't have the time to do it then, I will definitely do it a little bit later in the day when I do have time. But I meditate every single day, especially now. Because when we can get quiet and we can connect to the essence of who we really are, which is the divine part of who we are, that's where we find wisdom. That's where we find happiness. That's where we, find this foundation in this solace that helps us stay grounded through an intense time like we're going through right now. Yeah, so that's really important. And I always work with a coach. Yes, and I change it up all the time. I do. I have the coach I'm working with right now. She's super intuitive. She taps into the universe, so they're guiding her on how to guide me through each of the sessions. But because I have the ability, and I'm not traveling like a crazy woman like I normally do, that I'm grounded for a while. I'm actually really using this time, and I do a session once a week with her. And it's like I feel like I've done a 180 in all aspects of my life. And of course, as I have these awakenings and these realizations, that permeates how I teach and what my message is as well, and the programs that we do. So yeah.
That's so fabulous. Good for you. I do find that I think that people's spirituality has grown and opened up at this time, but I think it provides a record. It's like I always say to my coaching clients that it's almost heart song. It's the place where your heart gets to sing the thing it wants to sing, and that tone is the purity of each person, and that's where it becomes clean and clear and pure. And I love that, because that being in that space is when everything just makes sense, is when it's all easy, when it's effortless. It's not always, it doesn't mean you don't stutter and you don't sort of fall over. You do, because that's part of it. But you're always going forward in some way. So I love that. That was wonderful. Thank you very much, Natalie. Where do people go to find your offering? Where can we send people?
Yeah, so mindmovies.com is our main website. And that's kind of the springboard to everything. You can find out about all of our programs there. We have my inspiration show there, which I'm not doing anymore, but there's a ton of videos online. The podcast, you can go through to the podcast from there as well. So there's a lot of free information there, and it tells you everything about us and all the work that we're doing in the world, and also the school program as well. So it's all
phenomenal. It's been such a pleasure and an honor. Thank you so much, Natalie, for joining me. I really, really appreciate it. So this is Living Raw Radio, and I will look forward to seeing you again very, very soon. Thank you for joining me.